Elena,
Yeah.
do we need to continuously trick our brain in order to do new things to get out of our comfort zone, or um, can we create tricks that our brain will then adapt to and then modify itself?
Yeah, so a little bit of both, depending.
Mhm.
I'm going to cover this in a minute as well, depending
Okay.
on what you want to change.
Mhm.
But essentially, so there's so many different strategies out there. I'm going to share one methodology that works for millions of people around the world. So I'll share one. But to
Okay.
your point, Millery, some recent research that came out from Dr. Andrew Huberman, if maybe you're familiar with him. So he's a
Mhm.
professor at Stanford. He studies neuroscience. He has a really great books and articles and blogs and YouTube channel that actually breaks it down in very simple ways of how the brain operates in different capacities. But
Mhm.
so he proposes a lot of different strategies and methodologies. And I'm going to share like one that's very popular as well with you today. But I always say there's no magic formulas when it comes to change. It's about understanding what's out there, understanding basic biology, right? How we operate, how our brain operates, and then creating a system that works for you. Everybody in this session is going to approach change differently. It depends on how much change you've gone through, right? Some people might have gone through a lot of change, so your brain is almost like it's like a muscle, right? So some of you it might have worked out, you might be stronger. When it comes to change for others, it still might be more difficult. So for each person, that, like I always say, there's no magic formulas. It's just about creating a system and a process that works for you. So what I'm going to be sharing is just hopefully some nuggets of information that you can put together. You're like, okay, I can try this or maybe that. So back to your point, Milry, one of the most important things about change is sleep, as simple as it sounds. So do we know what's neuroplasticity? Anybody want to explain to me neuroplasticity? Neuroplasticity, even if you don't know, maybe you can guess. What is neuroplasticity? What does it sound like when you hear it? Or what's the definition? You can use the chat, or you can unmute yourself and speak.
Is it something being stretched?
Yeah, good guess. Yeah, neuro is the brain, and plasticity is like plasticity, right? Our flexibility, flexible mind, adaptation, brain waves. So yeah, absolutely. So it's our brain's ability to change, right? And so one of the most important things that happen when we change is the brain starts to rewire itself through the new behaviors. And in terms of how we're going to how we're going to do it, we're going to go on the next slide. But for now, what I want you to think about is that it really depends on the quality of sleep that we get, which is why in the beginning of the session, I mentioned the 3 pieces of well-being. And the first one is that physical well-being. How well do you sleep? As simple as that sounds, we have to almost go back to the basics here, because if you're not sleeping well, so you don't have that deep REM sleep, if you're waking up throughout the night, whatever may be, right? Like whatever you might be going through, maybe there's some clinical challenges, etc. But it's very hard for the brain to change and to do the neuroplasticity piece that it does if you don't get enough sleep. So again, I always invite you to go back and audit your health in general, particularly your sleep habits, because that is when change actually solidifies in your brain. So that's something very important to remember here. Another thing is when whatever we're trying to change is meaningful to us, meaning we know what this is going to give us. So for one of the biggest challenges people have when it comes to change or achieving any particular goal is that oftentimes we set a goal and we're not really sure. We're just kind of setting it like we want to change a job, we want to get a job, we want to change careers, maybe we want to grow in this particular field, but we're not really sure. We're just doing it because for some other external factors, but it's not really emotionally tied to us, right? So understanding why do you want to make that change is very important in order for that change to stick. All right. Another thing is Milbury, to your point earlier as well, is if you train your brain to experience change and to have it think differently from time to time, when the big change comes along, it's going to be prepared. So it's like the same thing of just like, I don't know, like as simple as going to the gym or going for a walk, right? The more you move, the easier the easier it's going to be for you to go to that next activity and the next activity. If you lead a very sedentary lifestyle, it's like starting from scratch. So the less change you go through, the harder change will be. And to our brain, change doesn't mean go through life changes. Who wants that all the time? But it's almost something like learning a new skill, right? Thinking differently, talking to somebody new, meeting somebody new, taking a different route home. So these small little pieces of change. Examples here also, creating art, listening to music. So an example here, learning a new way to get to the store or whatever your typical route is. So just disrupting that 95% autopilot and trying to train your brain to be always kind of, kind of agile, so to say. And Miller said, getting rid of bad habits. And the same thing can also, the methodology I'm going to be sharing with you guys at the next slide, it can be applied to also unlearn bad habits, unlearn things that are not useful to you. We spend a lot of things collecting things that might not be actually needed anymore. So it's there's also a process of unlearning and letting go of certain things that are occupying our mind and in that 95% automated box that are not serving us. So not only does it help you create routines, but it also helps you remove bad routines. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So this is something very important. And again, like if you take away anything from this, these 4 points, it's the sleep. I cannot stress it how much sleep impacts how productive you are, how creative you are, how patient you are, how you manage your emotions, how you think, how you create anything in that day, how you build. All of that comes down to sleep. So, if this maybe for some of you, it's just a reminder to get good sleep, and practice good sleep habits, so to say.